All right, welcome to yet another fabulous Linux Zoo crew. That's right, it's episode 30 live. And today on the Zoo, it is Get Your Game on Linux. But before we start today's show, I would like to share with you a few words from our founder of the Linux distro community, Voltam.
Hi, I'm Voltam, founder of the Linux distro community. The Linux distro community is a place for people to hang out and discuss Linux distros, software, and open source. The Linux distro community is a community funded by its members for its members. We are a friendly, welcoming community that encourages people who use Linux operating systems and software to share their passion and knowledge with other people. We believe that when people share information freely, everyone benefits. We'd love to see you become a part of the Linux distro community. You can voice chat with us on Mumble or text chat with us in IRC. Head over to linuxdistrocommunity.com for details. Join in today in the sharing of knowledge and the freedom that a Linux operating system gives people. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Voltam. Well, I'll tell you what, folks, we have a special crew here in the studio today, and we're talking about Linux gaming, and I'm going to pass the microphone over to our co-host, RobGraves. RobGraves. So tell me, whose grave did you rob the most recently?
I don't know.
I just think that's a curious name. Why don't you introduce our guests here?
All right, on today's Zoo Crew episode, we have Ironclaw, Matthew Moore, and Teddy 5090, in addition to my co-host and the co-host, Tostoday, Total OS today.
Toaster today. Hey, Tostoday, how you doing?
I'm so embarrassed. I thought this was Get Your Game on the Xbox show. I have to leave. Goodbye. No, I'm just kidding. I'm doing fine. I'm in a good mood. I'm just playing with my Galaxy S4 like we were talking. I'm in a good mood, so I'm curious to see where this gaming show is going to lead us.
Well, I have to ask you, did you get any games for your G4 yet? Or S4?
No, because it got FedEx to me yesterday, like around 6 p.m. So I've been learning how to use it, but no games yet. But I will soon.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, the thing is, Android does have a lot of cool games, and Android runs on top of the Linux kernel, and that is one way that we get our game on and that sort of thing. But my co-host Rob has an announcement. So why don't you tell us about this? RobGraves is giving out a Steam key for the X3, Albion Prelude, and Terran Conflict. Why don't you tell us about that, Rob?
Yeah, I picked up the other day the Terran War bundle on Steam, which is X3 Terran Conflict and X3 Albion Prelude. Actually, Albion Prelude depends on Terran Conflict, but I am giving it away on the Linux distro community forums. We can include a link to that in the show notes. But in addition to that, actually all of the X series games are on sale this week. I'm not sure exactly when they end, but they're approximately 50% off. I think they're 50% off.
Yeah, and that is what really just pleased me to no end, because I've played the X series of games since they came out almost a decade ago. X Beyond the Frontier, X Tension, and all the games that followed X2 to Threat, Reunion, the Terran Conflict, and Albion Prelude. Beautiful space combat simulation, and it even looks a lot nicer than Eve, in my opinion. Beautiful game. Fun gameplay and that sort of thing. So the link will definitely be in the show notes. And all you need to do is be a member of the Linux distro community forums, and you just put your name and say "me in" on the thread, and then that is the 17th that you're making that drawing on July 17th. Is that correct?
That is correct. And actually, at the moment, I'm having people pick a number between 1 and 1,000, and I've got a script that'll just randomly pick a number. If it gets too crazy, it depends on the traffic there. I might abandon the pick a number thing because it'll be too hard for people to pick an available number, and I'll just put everybody's name into a list and have it randomly pick one.
That sounds like a wonderful idea. So yeah, and thank you, Rob, for that contribution to the community and that sort of thing. And that is, and that's something that I just really love about Linux, because I'm sure you guys will have to agree with me that this is the best time to be using Linux and to be a gamer, because now we've got Steam bringing new games to us at least once a week. We're seeing something new coming in. And then, of course, there are other great games out there a lot of people aren't even aware of that have Linux ports. Ironclaw and I last night were sitting down and talking about porting Neverwinter Nights over to Linux and getting all the movies to play and that sort of thing. And Ironclaw came in and he says, "Hey, I figured out a way to get all these movies working." And so tell us a little bit about that, Ironclaw.
Well, I was playing with it, and I was having a hard time with Bink Player because it would change my screen resolution when I exited the game, and it was irritating me. So I decided to look through the Perl script, the NW Movies Perl script, and I noticed that it referenced two other players beside the Bink Player. So I started looking around for information on that, and I found you can use MPlayer if you convert those from out of the Bink format into like OGG Theora files. So I tried that, just running them through straight conversion with FFmpeg, and it worked great. I mean, they were blocky and everything, playing at 1920 by 1080, but they did play. And that was kind of the point where I started talking to you, and you came up with the idea of converting them using Kdenlive to 720p format, and yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, because that's the thing, because it's funny because you're sitting there and you're looking through the PL files, and I'm like, well, and I was looking at those files too. And it was cool because I didn't have to do any editing or whatnot for the actual file. All we had to do was just delete the Bink player, and then it would recognize if you had an MP4 in there. And so that was a wonderful idea because it did a really great job rendering these videos out at 720p. So guess what, kids? I'm going to do a video tutorial on that. So if you guys have Neverwinter's Nights lying around somewhere, not only am I going to show you how to install it, but I'm going to show you how to run this thing without having Bink Player installed. You'll just need MPlayer installed on your system, and I will show you how to convert those videos so that you can watch them in high def and get a beautiful picture every time. So that was a fun little adventure we had last night, Ironclaw, and we need to bump our heads together a little bit more often for getting some of these games working. Now everybody knows Steam's bringing out a lot of really great games through the Steam client, but now they're coming out with the Steam Box. Now, we really don't know what pricing or anything it's going to have, but I think the Steam Box may very well possibly push game developers into creating titles for Linux. What do you think about that, Ironclaw?
I think a great thing, because the first thing, if someone wants to get published on the Steam Box, is they're going to have to make a Linux binary that runs on it, and it's going to have to use OpenGL just like a desktop Linux system does. So at that point, they've done all the heavy lifting, and with digital distribution, I don't see why they wouldn't release that where people could buy it to run on their desktop system too. It certainly wouldn't be a whole lot of extra cost. Matthew,
what do you think?
Well, I think gaming on Linux is a big component that's been missing from Linux for a long time, and the development of the Steam Box might be a huge step in getting AAA title developers involved in Linux, because the Steam Box runs on top of a Linux core. So developing for that platform, like Ironclaw said, all the heavy lifting is done. So I think it would be a good way for these AAA developers to enter into the Linux world.
Rob?
I actually haven't heard too much about this, and I heard it in rumor, and I passed it off as just rumor, but I said the same thing about the Steam client, hearing about the Steam client for Linux for so long, and now it's a reality. So I would greatly look forward to this, because I do see it as Ironclaw and Matthew Moore have said, as a stepping stone for developers to develop games in a Linux format for...
All right, looks like Rob cut out on us, but I wanted to pull up something that Zeus had mentioned. What about the Ouya? And yes, that is another gaming console that is Linux-based. But the thing is, and it may bring some more titles to the Linux platform. Yes, that is definitely a possibility. But I'm thinking that, that the Steam box is really what is going to give a big push, because if these game manufacturers, because let's just say, for instance, okay, so Steam goes ahead and releases its Steam box, okay, and then it ends up, becoming more popular than the other consoles that are available out there. If something like that were to really take off, well, then these game companies have to think twice. Well, hey, this is a big chunk of our sales. We better port our games over to this Linux platform that they're running on if we're going to want to sell our games, I mean, Android, had a small start at first, but then all of a sudden that picked up, and now it's got a huge chunk of the market share in mobile space. So what's to say that Steam can't do it? They've been in the gaming business for a long time, so it stands to reason they may just be able to pull this one off. How do you see it, Teddy?
The Steam box, I think, will be able to take off, because Steam has about 50 million players, and I've been a member of Steam since 2010. And they, it's backed by a great company, Valve, and they make, they make a great gaming community, so it would make sense for them to make the Steam box, and I think it would really take off.
Now, Tostoday, I know you like your Xbox and that sort of thing, but suppose if a Linux gaming console were to come out that had Halo on it, would you go for it?
First of all, let me say, if it's a Steam box, I'm sure it's going to have a hot price. But
I actually have an idea on that.
Okay, well, a couple things here. As a former PC gamer and now currently Xbox 360 gamer, yes, I like to play my Halo. Up until Steam came along in Linux, gaming in Linux, in any Linux distribution did not impress me. Period. Yeah, I dabbled in it, but I stuck with my either Windows PC or Xbox 360. I think with the Steam client coming to Linux, that changes the whole ball game. I'm not quite impressed yet, and I stress yet. I think, Spatry, when it comes to, yes, if a game like Halo and the same quality story and graphics could be played on Linux, of course I'm going to play it. You know me. But it's interesting because someone in Linux, a company in Linux, has to take charge. And it's funny because this week I've been toying around with some ideas of a upcoming video titled How Ubuntu Linux Can Conquer the World. I think Canonical should do it because Ubuntu has been out since its inception, since 2004, I think, and you have to give them credit for, exposing Linux to the world and to myself and to countless millions for giving Linux the exposure needed to become a viable alternative to anything else out there. But I think they should take charge and say, look, we are going to be the voice of Linux, meaning we will control the quality. Everything will work out of the box. No more surprises with graphics drivers that are tested and don't work. No more glitches. No more freeze-ups with compiz and all this BS. We're going to have an operating system that if you buy it, if you buy the Ubuntu desktop, whatever they want to call it, when you take it home, we guarantee you it's going to run better than your current Windows PC, and we guarantee, and that's have to include gaming. If they can pull that off, I'm on board.
Well, I don't know if they'd be able to do all that. Now, I do know that Ironclaw and Rob has some experience with wine and that sort of thing. But before we get into that, Teddy brought up a good point. And this is a nice direction the show can take. Before we hit wine, what about piracy with games? Go ahead and start us off, Teddy.
There's a bunch of games, on torrent websites, and, it really hurts these gaming companies, who make these great pieces of art, but, they get in the hands of wrong people, and they put them out on torrent sites, for other people to download.
Well, I think the question is becoming moot nowadays for that because, you have a lot of these new games that are coming out, okay, that are being released on the Humble Bundles. They're offering them at a very reasonable price where people can pay the price that they want. And not only that, but also internet service providers are starting to crack down on people that are downloading these torrents. If you're downloading video files or game files and that sort of thing, you can, the ISP gets a complaint, they can actually shut off your service. And I see, and I've heard of people having this happen where they'd get a note from their internet service provider saying, hey, you downloaded a file that you weren't supposed to, and we have to tell you again, we're shutting off your service. So they are cracking down. But let's face it, as long as there are people developing software out there, somebody is always going to be out there to pirate it. We're powerless to do anything. We're really powerless to do anything about it. Now, we know that software companies in the past have come out with different technologies. And Ironclaw and I were talking about this last night, as a matter of fact. We had Starforce, which used to really wreak havoc with people's optical drives, Tages, and a few other of these game technologies that people that would install drivers on your system just to be able to play a stupid game. And sometimes these things would wreak havoc on people's systems, and people were getting pissed about them. And they're like, well, if you release this game, with these technologies on here, I'm not going to buy them. So and even then people are still going to, they're still going to get past those protections. So, the honest person is going to spend their money honestly. I know I'm going to sleep comfortably at night knowing that I paid for my software and I didn't pirate it. All right, let's move on to wine. Now, Ironclaw and RobGraves, I know you guys use wine. And let me first start with you, Ironclaw. Do you notice a difference between playing a game in Windows versus Linux under wine? Have you noticed any performance increases or maybe even bring up any challenges you've come across?
Well, I mean, certainly wine doesn't work for everything. For instance, I've been playing with the Wing Commander 4 download off of Good Old Games, and I can't get it to work. It's looking for something, and I haven't figured out what yet. But games that install and you've got the right things in wine for them, for instance, DirectX 9 support, codec support, stuff like that, I don't really notice any difference. Wine is very light. It's just a translation layer, and generally I get, for instance, in World of Warcraft, I see 50 to 60 frames a second, regardless of if I'm booted into Windows or in Linux playing that.
Okay, now, interesting that you mentioned that and yes, the GOG.com version does have a garbage rating on the Wine HQ website, because we did discuss this a little bit earlier. But the thing is, if you had the CD version or a DVD version of the game, not the GOG.com version, those actually have a gold rating and they're supposed to run very well. So there has to be some little hidden thing that they did to this to not allow it to work, because the earlier releases of Wing Commander and most of the Good Old Games or GOG.com libraries will actually run quite well under Wine in Linux. Rob, why don't you share some of your experiences with us with Wine?
I would say my personal experience with Wine has been very minimal. I used it for the occasional app here and there, not so much with gaming, actually. And that's actually one of the few reasons I still keep my Windows 7 partition around is for a few select games, one of which I've just been trying the last couple days to get working in Wine is Sid Meier's Civilization 5, and I seem to have some problems because it started trying to install the Windows Steam client in Wine, and I ran into some problems there. And I found out on the Wine database, I think somebody had said they had used the Skid Row, the torrent file, incidentally. I own the game. I own Civ 5, tried to install it with the disk and had problems with it, and I'm considering trying to use that torrent to run that one just to see if I can get it to work, but I don't know.
Well, the thing is, if you actually own a physical copy of the medium, I don't see anything wrong with downloading a backup copy of it. Now, because there are some games that you can get working in Linux under Wine, but it requires you to use a no CD patch or a no CD crack or a hacked executable file. Now, to be able to get them working. And I will admit, in the past, I have done that. As a matter of fact, my favorite game from Microsoft, the Microsoft Freelancer game, I run that natively in Linux. I downloaded a fixed executable file because for some reason, when you have this installed in Linux, it can't find the disk that you have in your drive, the physical disk. So having a fixed exe file became necessary. And sometimes that is required. So you might want to try that. It might work, but rather than just downloading the entire game itself, just do a search online to see if there's a patched executable that you could use for that and see if that would work out for you.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I'm still experimenting with that particular game. I've had some real good success with some games. Like I think I had Borderlands work almost out of the box. But it's touch and go for me.
Yeah. Now, I know a lot of these games have an end-user license agreement saying that you will not reverse engineer. You agree not to reverse engineer the game and all this other stuff. But, how many people actually sit down and read these end-user license agreements in the first place? How many people?
Me. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I believe you. I believe you, Tostoday. The thing is, if I pay for the software, I should be able to use it how I want to. But that's one reason why we all run Linux, obviously, because we want to use the software how we want to. But unfortunately, with Windows software, we're kind of stuck. But at least there are plenty of hackers out there that will patch those games and help us to get them working. But it is a great thing to see that we are getting more games. Now we have the Humble Bundles, and how many of you guys actually contribute to the Humble Bundles every time they come out?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I'll have to admit, I don't get every single bundle. Ironclaw, I'll get one if it has something I'm looking for. Armageddon, who's sometimes a guest on our show, just mentioned that he would. That he pulls off of them as well. And I'm sure many times you get the keys from the Humble Bundles that you can put into Steam, and then you can download it from Steam and play that locally. So that's a wonderful thing.
I have a question for you guys.
Go ahead, Tostoday.
How is it possible, and I get many, many comments on this particular topic. How is it possible when a lot of people say that they can run many Microsoft programs better in Linux, including Microsoft games better in Linux, when the Microsoft products software was designed for Microsoft, software, Microsoft OSs? To me, that's like saying, hey, let's remove the engine in your Lexus. Let's put that Pontiac engine in there because it'll run just as good, if not better. That's how I see it. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, something to keep in mind, because I have noticed when running some games under Wine, I did have noticeably better performance under Wine than I did in Windows, but simply for the reason that Linux has less requirements or resources running. Whereas in Windows, you've got your real-time antivirus scanner running. You have a bunch of other things that are running in the background. Lord knows what Microsoft has running in the background that you don't even know about. But you have these items running in the background using resources, whereas in Linux, you don't have those resources running. So now you have some extra resources that are available for those applications and games to run. And I have noticed a performance boost, more so with the Flash development platform. I do some development in graphics artistry in Flash and Fireworks, and those programs actually perform better under Wine than they did for me in Windows. In Windows, I always had problems with my Flash software crashing, and it just doesn't do that as much as it did in Windows, working under the Wine platform. So But the thing is, your mileage may vary. This is a case-by-case basis. A number of things can influence it. What version of wine are you running? Are there any regressions in this particular release? I'm actually running the development version, and it seems to be working pretty well. And Zeus also wanted to point out Runes of Magic ran better and more stable than it did on Vista and Windows 7. Thanks for sharing that. So, this isn't something that we're just making up off the top of our heads. People are actually noticing a performance improvement.
Well, yeah, but some of that has to do with the fact that under the hood, Linux is a completely different animal than Windows. The kernel works differently. The memory management works differently. The file systems are different. Everything is different.
Exactly. So, and so it's not surprising that people are seeing improvements. But the thing is, you're never going to get every single thing to work. You're never going to be able to get everything to work properly. Teddy, your turn.
I haven't had good luck with wine for games. I've tried a couple of PopCap games, Peggle and Plants vs. Zombies, and I didn't seem to have too good performance. They worked, but it was choppy frames and stuff.
Sometimes what can influence that is the graphics driver that you're using. If you're using the default drivers that ship with Linux, or whether or not you're using proprietary drivers, because I have noticed a difference between using the stock Xorg drivers versus the proprietary driver. And sometimes having the proprietary driver can be a necessary evil for some gaming. But I will admit, though, it seems like those PopCap games were meant to run under Linux, because I've never had any trouble getting those running, and they actually ran okay for me.
Well, you have to remember that when you install, for instance, the proprietary NVIDIA driver, you actually get a newer version of OpenGL than Mesa gives you on the base system.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that would be true for the ATI driver as well. Speaking of ATI drivers, how are your drivers doing today, Toss?
Don't you dare go there. I'll get off and never come back.
That's when you can cue in the boo sound effect, right?
Yes, but I won't. I'll be nice, so I won't do it.
All right, well, let's have some final thoughts here, and because we're almost out of time. Ironclaw, we'll start with you. What are your final thoughts on this discussion?
I would say it's a great time to be gaming on Linux, because things are moving a lot faster than they have for the last few years, and it's going to be pretty interesting to watch what happens.
I'll have to agree with you there, because I think in just the past few months alone, I've seen so much momentum with gaming in Linux than I think I've seen since I started using Linux. So this is a wonderful thing. Matthew, what are your final thoughts?
Well, this is a good move for the entire Linux world as a whole. It'll bring more people to the platform as well. I personally know someone that I showed Linux to this person before, and he really liked what he saw, but he said that he could not convert because of his games. So bringing these games to this platform will also bring users along with it, and I think it's good for everyone.
I'd have to agree with you there. RobGraves, what are your final thoughts?
I think it's an excellent time to be a Linux gamer. I don't think we're quite there yet, but the future is very bright. And what I've seen so far, the games that I have played in Steam, for example, play excellently. There's almost no reason for me to reboot into Windows anymore. And I have a couple friends actually who are on the cusp of adopting Linux, and the gaming thing is their hang-up. And they're eagerly watching my progress with Steam and Linux, and I keep them informed on how things are going along, because a few of them may be installing Ubuntu pretty soon.
There you go. Teddy!
This is probably the best time to be using Linux, because when I started back in 2011, it was almost nothing in the way of games. Now, with Steam and Valve backing everything up in partnership with Canonical, it looks very bright. New games are going to be ported to Linux pretty much daily.
Exactly. And Hi 675-445 says that it just keeps getting better. What are your final thoughts, Toss?
Ubuntu, Canonical, if you are listening, I stand by what I said. It's time to step up, take control, and remove me from my Xbox 360.
All right. Well, this has been an invigorating conversation. I have to agree, this is a great time to be a gamer. In Linux, we're seeing more and more innovations. And, I'd love to see where this is going to be a year from now. We're probably going to, I think we're going to see a big explosion of games coming to us soon. So I think this is a wonderful thing. It's going to pull in a lot more people. So I'm just going to keep my eye out. And you know what? Help Steam and these gaming companies grow. When you see a sale on Steam, definitely go and buy into some of the games so that they'll keep making more games for us. Then there's Dezora out there as well. They're bringing a lot of great games to the Linux platform. Definitely check out the Humble Bundles. They're always bringing new games, and it's like we're getting new stuff every week. Every single week, we're getting new games. I mean, it's getting hard to keep up with all the new titles that are coming out. So this is actually an amazing thing. I'd like to thank Ironclaw for joining us, Matthew Moore, RobGraves, Teddy, and Total OS today. I'd like to thank everybody who's in the listening room, who's joined us for the show, and don't forget, you got to join us on the Linux Distro Community Forum for your chance to win that X3, Terran Conflict, and Albion Prelude game. We got a Steam. RobGraves has got a Steam key he's going to be giving away. So you want to check the show notes below and be sure to get in on the forum and sign up for it. The drawing is on the 17th, so that is 11 days from now, I believe. So you'll definitely want to get in on that and get your game on. They're a beautiful game, a lot of fun to play. Thank you, Voltem, Linux Distro community. Thank you, all of you. We will be here same time next week at 8 p.m. Not sure what the topic's going to be, but yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Oh, you pretty much already said it. I was just trying to last minute say that to enter for the X3 Terran War giveaway, you had to join the LDC forums and post on the thread listed in the show notes and pick a number, basically between 1 and 1,000 that nobody else has picked.
All right, that's sound thinking. So that means you got to now read through everybody's comments on the forum. But hey, that's not a bad idea either. So yeah, and thanks for contributing that to the community. So same time next week, and then for all you listeners, tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Total OS Today and I will be doing the Sunday night news and nonsense report. So you can be here same time, same channel tomorrow, and Total OS Today will take pot shots at each other. And in post-show conversation, we'll come up with some ideas for the topic for next week's Zoo Crew show. Thank you, all of you, for joining us. We will see you next time.
Today's show was brought to you by the Linux Distro Community. Visit us today at linuxdistrocommunity.com and chat with us on Mumble or in IRC on the Freenode network in the Linux Distro Community channel. The Linux Distro Community. Freedom through the sharing of knowledge.